Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minion with me right now is Useless.
Hello, how goes it?
I'm waiting on potentially a Harry, but he hasn't popped in yet. He might not be able to, depends on how life is going on his end.
Yeah.
But then we have the traveling exhibits. Sorry, I'm having a bit of difficulty pronouncing certain things because allergies are kicking my goddamn ass today. So if I turn V's into B's, that's the reason why. So the traveling exhibits are JenTMaxi.
Hello.
SnowPilot.
Hello.
CharmingCthulhu.
Autobots roll out.
Nice. And of course, I'm the
Bravo.
keeper for the night, as it is a Wednesday. Sanguine. How are all of you doing tonight?
Alive and kicking.
Good.
Not dead yet.
Always better than the alternative. And I am going to try to make sure that I mute every time before I have to clear my nose, but if I fail to mute in time, my apologies to everyone watching and to those currently on stream with me. But such is life.
We will get over it.
Yep. Just you might get your eardrums blown out by either me blowing my nose or if I'm not able to mute my mic before I sneeze tremendously loud, and I will not try to hold back my sneeze, because if I do, it feels like my lungs explode.
Oh yeah, the classic dad sneeze.
Yeah, because I sneeze hard enough that when I try to hold it back, you hear the doll as my lungs slap the inside of my rib cage, which is not exactly fun, especially since that very quickly squeezes the heart, which weird goddamn feeling. But yeah, so any of you guys do anything interesting today or find anything that stoked your ire or impressed you that you want to share with the class?
I got an argument about steaks on Twitter.
What?
Well, somebody was saying people want to keep eating steaks or beef because it makes them feel manly. I was like, that is just stupid.
Yeah, that is ridiculously stupid.
So wait, say
The
that one
only
again.
reason we want to eat them. Oh wait, yeah, go ahead.
Well, because he thinks they make him feel manly. That's what I said.
All right.
Uh.
Look, I'm just gonna say it. Throwing a steak on a fire, dude, there is not a better feeling than that. And okay, for one, it does make you feel manly. And if you're a lady doing it, it makes you feel womanly. And it tastes so good, dude.
Yeah, the main
You can't beat the flavor of a nice butter-basted steak.
the main reason that people eat beef is it's fucking delicious.
Yep. Because they want to.
Yeah. It's fucking delicious. It's the same reason why people eat fried chicken.
Yeah.
Fried chicken is fucking delicious.
It's so good.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of things. I've said many times the only animal that I've had cooked that I didn't go, oh man, this is pigeon. I can't stand pigeon. I've had
For me, it's lamb.
beef.
Oh no.
Lamb is amazing to me.
Yeah,
I've
it
had
is.
all the standard meats. So beef, duck, lamb, chicken, goose, pork.
I have not
Oh.
had goose.
I wonder
Goose
how
is
goose standard.
amazing.
I heard goose
Goose
eggs
is-
were huge.
Goose is absolutely delicious. You just need to be careful in how you cook it, because it's one of those things that you can fuck up fairly
Yeah.
easy. But when it's done right, oh my god, it's done right.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I don't try to cook scallops myself, because 2 seconds too long. And, oh man.
That just takes
Oh, it
practice.
turns into rubber, yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to be careful. And Donkey, you said that you're planning on getting drunk. As I said, even with you being sober, you become a bit difficult to understand. Though we do have a Canadian, so I could send you the link since Harry hasn't shown up. And this way, if you start your A's and braying, we at least have a Canadian that's able to translate for you.
Thank God.
Yeah, because... Okay, you're sober, I'll shoot you a link, and like I said, if you start braying and A-ing, then we at least have a Canadian. Well, if he falls asleep, he's just going to be used as the butt of a joke as per usual.
Well, I mean, the A-ing isn't that bad. I mean, I've been to Ottawa a couple of times. It's not that bad up there.
Okay.
You get used to it. Shady trap.
Yeah.
If Harry pops up after a bit, Donkey, then I'm going to bop you backstage since Harry had a spot before you did. But the link has been sent out to you. But yeah, I've had all the standard meats. Then I've had
Have you had
deer,
bison yet?
elk, bison,
sexy now.
buffalo.
Bear?
I've had kangaroo. I haven't had bear yet. I want to add bear to
It's
the animals
strangely
that I've
sweet.
consumed.
It has a weird sweetness to it.
Huh.
Okay.
All the honey they
Probably
eat,
from all the honey they eat.
Or berries and stuff.
Uh,
Yeah. But it does have a very nice gamey sweetness to it. It's very delightful.
Nice. I've had boar. Boar is amazing.
How about some alligator too?
Ooh,
I've had alligator.
yum.
I've had crocodile. I've had emu and ostrich.
See, all this
I've-
meat is at my price range, so that's what I never had before.
I've had frog, dog, cat. I've had
Yeah, I had cat.
locust, a shit ton of different insects, and a shit ton of things on top of everything that I've just mentioned thus far as well.
And you had also from just buying or just from traveling and all that.
Yeah, when I went to China and Japan was
Okay.
where I had a lot of the interesting cuts of meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. If anyone's played Skyrim, but I view Sanguine as the gourmet from Skyrim.
Well, you used the god of, botchery and pottery,
As I've said before, whenever I show up someplace in order to hang out with people, it is kind of like some long forgotten avatar of a god of feasting and drink shows up, because I show up with what I call the box of booze and bread.
Oh, Saturnalia.
And the box of booze and bread has a lot of different beers, ciders, meads, a number of whiskeys, and then it has hangover loaf, also known as lambus loaf, which, for those not familiar with what that is, think a standard size loaf of bread. That's a 1 pound loaf of bread that you're thinking. Now imagine that 1 pound loaf of bread actually weighs about 3 pounds, because in that 1 pound loaf of bread, which is still delightfully crumbly, and it weighs a bit more than 3 pounds because my bread's always dense to begin with, but it's still light and fluffy on the inside, despite being rather heavy for some goddamn reason. It makes no sense. Just accept it. And then in that lovely bread is also over a pound of smoked bacon and over a pound of smoked cheddar.
Well, that's why I waste a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good loaf of bread right there.
Yeah, I'm saying the bread itself. So if I make a standard 1 pound loaf of bread, my loaf of bread will weigh somewhere in between 1.25 pounds and 1.5 pounds, rather than 1 pound. I don't know why it weighs more, because when you cut into it, it looks like amazing, fluffy, light, amazing bread. And it tastes like amazing, light, fluffy, fantastic bread. It's just...
But it's a breakfast cereal.
heavier for some reason.
Yeah.
So that's what I show up with when it comes to hangouts. And then if it's someplace where I have access to a kitchen or grill, it gets scaled up from there. Like when I went to the home of Adam and visited an Inquisitor for the 4th of July last year. And we got, I think it was 12 pounds of steak, a shit ton of mushrooms, potatoes, some corn, and a bunch of other things. And we feasted.
Yeah. Some onions for Adam, you know.
Adam didn't try any onions that time. I am at some point going to make jammy onions and get that boy to try jammy onions.
Yeah.
Because at that point, they lose all of the sulfur notes and they just get deliciously sweet.
Yeah.
Jammy onions? You're talking just candied onions.
Extremely candied onions that are then seasoned up. Yeah.
See, I can't stand candied onions. I don't like my onions to be sweet.
Oh.
So
there is one difference because it's not quite candied. Candied, normally you add additional sugar. This doesn't add any additional sugar. So it's ridiculously caramelized onions. And then normally you mix in like a bit of beer or a bit of wine, throw in a bit of mustard so that you get a nice rounded flavor. And they just get this jammy consistency where you throw those sons of bitches on a burger. Oh,
see, yeah, no, I want that. I want that crunch when I bite through the onion with my burger.
Ah,
I want that thing going on. That's what I'm after.
Both Donkey and Charming have just dropped out. There comes Charming back into the back.
Yeah.
And if Donkey returns, then I'll click him back in. But yeah. Jammy onions are a thing of beauty. And I will often throw in raw onion when I'm putting them on the burger or putting them on a number of other dishes as well. But that sweetness that is entirely onion sweetness, maybe a little bit of wine sweetness as well. And then just that slight heat from the mustard or whatever additional things you toss in. Oh, it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah. I'm planning to make a gravy like that. I'm going to make them jammy onions, make a nice little onion gravy.
Yep.
So, which one's
that actually sounds really good.
Yeah.
Smother a nice steak in that. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. And I'm going to do a cube steak for my next video. So.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of things with those onions. You can turn them into sauces, either a brown broth / pan sauce type sauce, or you can go for a cream-based sauce. You can do all kinds of things that are just, You can make them cheesy. Throw them in a mac and cheese, and then you just get these little bits of ridiculously caramelized jammy onions in it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And Donkey, you were about to say something, and then you fell out.
Yes, when you refer to jammy onions, are we talking about the jump between normal onions and caramelized onions? But caramelized onions is where normal onions should be.
It's
depends what you're using it for.
There's different levels of it. Like there's regular caramelized onions, and then you take it a step further, and then it's jammy.
Jammy onions are effectively caramelized onions taken to the 11th degree.
Like they're really, really nice on bries. Like if you ever do like baked bries, they're fantastic. Yeah, they're super fantastic.
You guys keep messing around with brie. Just leave it alone. It's good as is.
Well, sure it is. But it's like baking anything with it's cheese and heat. It's just like magical.
And
to be honest, I'm more of a fan of camembert though. Like I like brie, but I think camembert's a little nicer. Camembert. A nice one, like a nice creamy one. It's just I don't know. I just liked it a little bit better. But I used to sell cheese, so.
Oh,
fair enough.
You know what's good on just about everything? A nice smoked Gouda.
Yeah,
good is the best.
Just a nice thin slice of that, slap it on a burger or a brat, and yep.
Damn near any smoked cheese will win me over.
Yeah, Sanguine has a smoking gun. He's no close cheese now.
Yeah, we used to get this really old, well-aged Gouda cheese from the Netherlands, and like they're like 3-4 year aged cheeses. I didn't realize they did that kind of stuff, but it just basically it crystallizes the cheese, and it becomes a lot harder. And yeah, they're fantastic. We used to. I wasn't too keen on their pairing because our store liked to do the poo-poo shishi. Let's try to sell crap to rich people who are dumb. But they really liked the dark chocolate with that pairing, and I'm still not sure how I felt about it because it kind of like some people really liked it and some people were like, "Why?"
No, you use the dark chocolate to offset a I don't say tart cheese.
A sharp.
Yeah. Either a sharp cheddar or a particularly strong brie. That's what you use the dark chocolate for.
Yeah, which makes sense. With the Gouda, I think she was just kind of going the wrong angle because that one was kind of gritty. Like it did have the salt factor that made it a little gritty. So, but,
well, because when you have the richness of the Gouda, you don't want to go rich with rich.
Yeah.
That's just no.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Maybe like
chocolates
a
can work with insanely. Chocolates can work with insanely creamy. Like, there was one place when I was living down in the Richmond, Virginia area where there was a farmer's market and there was a goat cheese seller that just did a shit ton of really creamy goat cheeses that then they would have their standard as well as a bunch of seasoned ones. And one of them was a chocolate goat cheese.
I could see that.
And the creaminess and the slight salt from the goat cheese with the richness of the chocolate. Oh, that was just absolutely fucking sinful.
Nice.
Are we talking proper chocolate or that American Hershey crap?
It was a good dark for it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't buy Hershey anyway. Okay.
Hershey's good if you want s'mores.
I just don't buy them because they get their cocoa from slave labor, so that's why I don't buy Hershey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of places technically end up getting them.
Like Godiva, any place like that, you're gonna.
Yeah, no, that's not why I buy chocolate.
There's a good chance that some poor villagers earning like 50 cents a day to traipse into the jungle and bring back cocoa pods.
Well, it's not even that. It's the palm oil. Like, it's finding palm oil in everything, and they don't tell you where they source it from, and they're not going to tell you where they source it from. And I kind of put my foot down. It was the orangutans. It was just realizing how many species we're attacking because of something like palm oil. I hate palm oil because I think it's unnecessary. You know, it's just everything that you find it in, you're looking at it and like, did it absolutely 100% need it in there? And you realize the only reason it's in there is for shelf life.
And yeah, as Chaos just chimed in, also, if you're worried about the slave labor / near slave labor, then a good chunk of imported shit in general ends up falling into that category.
Well, I'll try not to. So, you know.
Yeah, it's the least I can do is to look, you know? I mean, if I need something, I need something, but...
Yeah, but it's like, you know, we can make our stands where we can, at least, right? Like, there's something to be said about Nestle and Coca-Cola, but no one's actually, like, not buying Coke products when they own almost everything.
Yeah, and it comes down to where a lot of these types of arguments come down to. And it's... If it is the best product, people will bitch and moan about it without doing anything because we're willing to let shit slide for the best quality. And you see this time and again in damn near everything. And it makes perfect sense why we would do that. It's just the people that get really high on their horse that, well, I don't buy this product for this reason. Then you're going, oh, so
No.
did you just tweet that from your iPhone?
It's not so much that. Like, I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. It's just for me, it's more of just like the more I realize how much damage we've done to other species, and I am picking on the orangutans. I don't know what it was about it, but it horrified me. So it's just like, do I still eat stuff with palm oil? I know for a fact I do, because it's in everything.
And
but
they're the only primate species that has officially entered the Stone Age.
Yeah, it just bothers me that we have so many companies that just care so little about things like that. And so yeah, with Nestle, I don't doubt that there's some products that I buy that are from Nestle, but I've significantly cut back. Like I've probably cut back about 90% of what I buy from them. And it's something, and at least I can write them to be like, listen, if you want me to buy more of your products, do better.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against them for like, I mean, they've done a lot of shitty stuff. Like, I mean, they've resourced water when they shouldn't have. They've, I just wish they would do better. I have no problem supporting you as a company. I just wish that you would do better, because we all have to live on the planet together. And I don't want to live on a planet where we've killed everything off except for ourselves.
Well,
just horrifies me a little bit.
Well, even like with that, like this year I've gotten into leatherworking, and thus far I have worked exclusively with Veg Tan Leather versus Chrome Tan.
Okay.
Right? It's natural, it's birch tannins and things like that versus chrome salts. It takes forever and a day to do a hide. I think it's like upwards of 2 months to actually tan a hide that way. But the environmental impact is significantly reduced compared to the 3 or 4 days it takes to do a chrome tan.
Yeah,
I get a leather that has more body to it, and it fits with what I'm trying to do with my I don't call it trademark yet, but my style is keeping it as old school as I can. Right, so everything I do is hand stitched. It's hand cut. I refuse to get a sewing machine. I'm trying to avoid using power tools, right? Because that's the style I want to go for. And like actually, a friend of mine's daughter is vegetarian, and we asked her, like, well, would you like me to make you something? And like, I'm happy if you want to. I will look at vegan leather if it makes you feel better. And she was like, no, because that's worse for the environment. It's better that the animal is used wholly versus some plastic shit.
Yeah.
It's choices like that, right? There are little things you can do with even your hobbies, right? Sourcing things from places local to you.
And I'm trying to remember, because I know that there's chrome tanning, which is wet white, if I remember correctly. Then there's veg tanning, and I'm trying to remember what the process for wet blue tanning is.
Mr. Yes, I really see what you're saying there, but that's not entirely Nestle's fault. That's kind of like hindsight going, oh shit, we gave them food that they could use, but we forgot they don't have fucking water. That's higher ups who had good intentions who were just retarded.
Or is it chrome is wet blue? Did I have that backwards?
The path to hell is.
I think it's wet blue. I'm not entirely sure. Is the boiled brains? That is an oil tan process, Wizard. It's not used hardly at all anymore because the materials are a little ridiculous.
Yeah. For that one, it took the boiled brains and then also a shit ton of piss.
Yeah.
Nope. I'll come back.
It was a very niche thing. You will still see it in old school craft tanners. But your commercial tanners are either oil tanned, veg tan, or chrome tanned.
And I did have it backwards. It was wet blue is chrome because it's the specific chromium that they're using. Turns it blue.
Chromium in general is just, if you can avoid it, avoid it.
Though there are bacteria that have been designed in order to process chromium now. So we're actually doing a lot of really cool shit with bioreclamation.
So you guys keep saying chromium, and it keeps making me think of on the new Mad Max movie, they huffed that weird silver shit, and they got it all over their mouths.
Oh, that's ugh.
I'm just imagining that to be chromium, so don't worry. You convinced me to never use it if I ever tan leather.
Well, it's the faster process, but the hazmat that you'd be paying for is a little ridiculous.
Well, here's a question for you, Snow. So I'm not necessarily saying that you would know how to do this one either, but you know how certain native tribes up north do a smoke tan? My understanding is they were using like brains and urine.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
Yeah,
like, you know, I'm not saying it's gross or anything. I just that's my understanding of the recipe.
No, it is gross.
Yeah,
I'm just going to be the third party here who says it's gross, and they were savages.
Yeah, but what they're doing is they're extracting the specific types of oils that you'll find around the brain and the specific fats, because it's a very thin fat.
And then, like with pee, it's usually because of the pneumonia.
Ammonia, not pneumonia.
Ammonia. Ammonia. I just pronounce it that way. I don't know why. It just helps me remember the fucking word, actually.
No, it's the ultra traditional tanners that you'll find will still do that, but they're very, very small batch because it takes a ridiculous amount of materials and it's nasty.
Yeah, well, it's a bacteria wash effectively.
Yes. Yep.
And also that process gave a certain surname, or resulted in a certain surname popping into existing. So everyone knows, of course, Tanner is a surname related to tanning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many people knew that Walker is a surname related to tanning?
I did not know that.
I do now, apparently.
Probably because they usually put tanning. They usually left the tanners far away from town because they smelt bad. Like they didn't necessarily want to be near them.
No, it was actually in the urine stage of the tanning. When you're soaking the hides in urine, they have a tendency to float.
Mm-hmm.
So there was
they would step on it.
Person who was tasked with
they did that to clean them too,
pushing them back down. So that person was dubbed the Walker. And people that have that surname from particularly Scotland and the UK.
Oh, dude, I can't wait to tell my wife.
Are descended from a line that started by pushing the hides back down into the vat of piss.
Well, you think about it, the way you used to set dyes for wool and such was with urine because of the ammonia.
Yep. It was the same process. Yeah, because they had to clean it.
Yep.
I mean, you can sit there and look at it gross, but that's kind of what science is, and we still do that technically.
Some of these old school natural processes, there's a reason we haven't gotten past them, is they're just that effective.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Or they spawned large fetish circles.
It's why
they just can't get rid of it now. They just hang around the bars. They're like, "Hey, you gonna tan some leather tomorrow?" Like,
no. It just
I use chromium. Get away.
It always fascinated me how really intelligent our ancestors are. It's why I really throw shade at a lot of these SJWs who really don't understand what our history is.
Oh yeah, that pisses me off too.
Because how the thinking of that, like, to mix a brain with piss and then rub it into skin and actually have that be the thing that keeps it going and keeps it from making you sick, because like a lot of people just think that you just skin a bear and then wear it. No, it doesn't work like that.
Well, and then to think, it's like, okay, I've now made this very interesting material that is very strangely much stronger than what I started with, and it seems to wear pretty well, and I can do stuff with it. To then figure out, hang on, if I dip it in this other chemical, this other waxy substance, and I let it get hot, I can make armor out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Weird.
Carboy or curbled.
Even just like I watched this lady from France who remakes old saddles like the old fashioned way, and just showing how they make the leather waterproof. Like they, I always thought it was chemicals, and no, it's just the way that they rub the skin in a certain way to close the.
So when I do my edge work, there's all kinds of different chemicals you can use. For waterproofing, I use acrylic resin because it's acrylic, it's water based, it's not that nasty for you. But my edge work, I seal with beeswax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, SnowPilot, you probably know all about tin pants, and despite it being called tin pants, actually, SnowPilot, you explain tin pants.
I don't know what you're referring to.
You know what? It's the same. It's along the same lines as. Okay, I'll explain it real quick. So it's along the same lines as that. So back in the old country, right? In order to basically waterproof their clothes, they would get pants and they would just sit there and rub beeswax into them. They would sit there and rub beeswax, and then they would heat the pants up and then rub it again. And basically, it was like old school style. Along with different tarred canvases for campsite roofs and stuff like that, creating ceilings and stuff like that. Basically, wax cloth was a really huge invention.
Yep.
All right. Yeah.
And also, okay, you first.
But again, it's one of these old processes. It's like, okay, yes, there's all kinds of modern stuff I could use, but beeswax is about as safe for the environment as you can get. And as it turns out, come to find out a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine from work also picked up a new hobby during all the Rona times. He is starting to keep bees.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that, which is great, because everyone was worried about, bees dying out. So,
but he's literally like a mile or two away from me. It's like, oh, so, wait a little while for his colonies to get established. I'm like, okay, so, how much would you charge me for a couple ounces of beeswax every couple years? Because that's awesome. Like those little 1 ounce, like candle sized chunk of beeswax, and that's my edge treatment, and it's as natural as you can get.
Yep.
And this is the beauty of the free market.
One, your buddy, how did he get started? Did he buy nukes from down south in Georgia, or did he swarm catch them?
I don't know. I think he bought the nukes. I don't know where he got them from.
All right. Nukes are less resistant over swarm catching. This is actually my area too.
I don't know where he got them, but he got into it this year, and he's quite happy. They're taking hold pretty well.
Yeah, another issue with nukes is if they're from a significant distance away, they don't winter as well as caught swarms. Because a caught swarm is from a local hive system. They know how to handle their winters.
That I don't know. We'll have to see.
I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but you truly have to be insane to catch a live swarm.
There's a guy who does it. I've watched a guy do it, and it's just you have to be really gentle, and they have to be in the right mood. Like bees, it can even just be the queen, because it's based off the queen.
Yeah.
I've been watching a series of different YouTubers entirely who are just like they'll introduce a queen and she'll just be a bitchy queen.
There's an absolute mad lad of a woman that does.
I know who you're talking about.
Yep, without any of the protective kit. The fuck.
Like, I'm just gonna bare hand a swarm of bees. I'm like, I'm good. Nope.
That's not what I mean by swarm catching.
Oh, I know, but
what you do is take about a nuke-sized box, set it up in a good spot, not too far away from where you want to actually set up the hive. And then there's this particular grass extract that you can buy and just lace the entrance of it, and the swarms will go right for it if you get lucky.
Yeah, whereas she's just completely relocating hives, which is what makes it absolutely mad to watch. Because she's just picking up large sections of hives and going through them with her bare fucking hands to find the queen and move it over.
Oh, wait, there's the queen?
Yeah. And oddly enough, she's not Australian. And I'm not sure if she's Floridian. Those are the two groups that I would go, yep, that makes perfect sense. Florida or Australian. Maybe some hybrid of the two.
I know another guy like that, but he's from Georgia.
Which Georgia?
The state of the country.
The Georgia south of the Carolinas.
Okay.
The good one? Okay, the good one. Good.
Not the Georgia that Chechens are from.
And Stalin.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that part of Georgia is now in modern-day Russia. Georgia then and Georgia now are slightly different, I think.
Georgia then was larger than Georgia now. Because Georgia, when it was absorbed into the Soviet Union, it lost a shit ton of its land to Russia. Just like how, if you're talking about the Rus versus Russians, the Rus come from a much smaller area that is now part of Russia, and it's where Russia gets its name. And also, since
they're actually from around Kiev.
Yep.
Thank you, Vikings, for that.
The Rus were from around Kiev, and they were the people of Saint Vladimir of Kiev, who was an absolute mad bastard that is fucking hilarious when you look into him. Because, like I said, he's Saint Vladimir of Kiev. And what he did before he became a Catholic was he went around the area raiding, pillaging, having fun. He was then called in by the Byzantine Emperor, went to help the Byzantine Emperor. He got the Byzantine Emperor's daughter as his newest bride. Went back, converted to Christianity, then proceeded going around his land, raping, murdering, pillaging, and forcing everyone to convert.
Like all good men should.
So effectively, his lifestyle was exactly the same before and after.
He just had a different excuse now.
Yeah, he just had a different excuse, and due to that excuse, he was sainted.
Yeah, sounds like
yeah, dude, this badass.
And also, since we were talking about tanning, there is one other method other than the vegetable tan, the wet white, which is the non-chromium, uses a lot of aldehydes and various metal salts, but is gentler, not as bad as the chromium method, but still has some issues some people have. Really, they aren't that big of an issue because most of the metal salts are fairly benign metal salts like iron salt. And then there's also tarring, which none of us mentioned. Does anyone else remember what tarring is?
Yeah, no.
And that's Tawing.
Yeah, I figured.
I don't know. They didn't do that in the old Civilization game that I played. Dawn of Man. Yeah, they didn't do that in Dawn of Man, so I have no idea.
Tarring is a fairly fucking ancient method as well. And it uses alum. And then effectively you make the bread batter from hell, only without any yeast, because you use egg yolk, flour, some various other salts, and then alum. And you smear this shit on the hide, then you also soak the hide in warm potash, alum, and you do that back and forth between about 20 degrees C and 30 degrees C for an extended period of time, and then you pull it out and you then air dry it for several weeks.
Never heard that one.
Huh.
And goddamn it, cannibalistic wizard! I bet Sanguine remembers when you had to kill the hives to get to the stuff. Fantastic.
Back in my day.
Kill the hives. Kill the hives. No, you just move the queen a little bit away, and then or take off the supers. The super
Kill the
system's over
hives,
300
take the
years old.
wives.
But yeah, the different ways of tanning are actually really goddamn interesting. I ended up looking into them a number of years ago because I was doing a project in something where I had to come up with a theoretical company and then pitch my theoretical company. So my company was bioprinted leathers. Where rather than having to find a dead animal or kill an animal in order to get its hide, since we actually need more hides than we have to kill in order to get food. So you have hide stock and food stock, not necessarily the same animal. And we use more leather than we do the actual meat.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Because think about how much meat you get from a single cow versus
it's like
how much
400
leather.
pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get more meat here than leather.
Yeah, you're getting a shit ton of meat. So there's several different practices in order to acquire animal hides. There's found hides, which are animals that die of effectively natural causes, and then you just harvest the hide from that animal. These yield more interesting hides because the animal has
it already
lived
started
for
to
an extended...
biodegrade.
Well, it's not necessarily that it already started to biodegrade, because you can actually find these fairly fresh. But
you're going to get range marks. You're going to get wrinkles and old wounds and scars, and sometimes that's desirable in a hide. A lot of times it's not.
Yep. So you end up with less virginal hide. Hold on one moment. I need to sneeze and blow my nose.
Okay.
Bless you.
I mean, make a
It's
cool
actually
jacket, though.
it's actually why the range wars of the late 1800s kicked off. Was you had these homesteaders who didn't take kindly to these massive cattle drives coming up from Texas, heading towards Nebraska and the railheads in Kansas and Nebraska.
Yep.
Would put barbed wire up. The ranchers weren't pissed that the homesteaders were there. They were pissed because they were putting barbed wire across their drive lanes, essentially.
Yep.
And it would tear the hides, and they wouldn't get as good a price for the animal when they got to Chicago.
Yep. So
they were pissed as hell because you get there and this hide is just full of puncture holes and puncture marks. You're going, yeah, you're getting half price for that hide, dude.
Yep.
They were losing money.
Mm-hmm.
So you have found hides that don't yield as desirable of a hide. Less virginal is one way of phrasing it.
There are people who want that character in the hide.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you tend to see that more for crafters rather than company-made stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. So the amount of hides that we have available is outstripping the demand that we have for the meat. So one of the potential ways that you can deal with that is by using bioprinting. Because if you're able to properly set up a bioprinting rig for animal hide, then you can get as much hide as you need without having to kill an animal in order to get it.
Okay, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like how there's research being done into bioprinting organs and bioprinting skin for burn patients. It would be much the same thing, only rather than bioprinting human skin, we would be bioprinting the full thickness of animal hides.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that you could also do with that is you could potentially make a commingled animal hide where it's, let's say you want a really ornate pattern on your hide. With current methods, you need to do a lot of work in order to get that pattern into the hide, because you have to protect certain areas when you're trying to do certain types of treatments while letting others, or you have to do effectively almost the leather working equivalent of inlay.
Like burning.
No, it's an embossing process. While you're actively tanning the hide, they'll insert a process to emboss, say, an alligator or snakeskin pattern into a cowhide to get that look without actually having to go hunt Wally Gator down in Florida.
Yeah, so you end up having to do shit like that, whereas if we go over to a bioprinting model, we could get hides that could never grow in the real world outside of this, because you won't end up with, for instance, pig leather. Anyone happen to know what color pig leather tends to come out?
No.
Versus cow leather.
I couldn't answer that at all, man.
Yeah.
Aren't they both shades of brown?
Pig leather comes out more like human leather.
Comes out pink.
And it comes out rather pink and pale.
Oh, then yeah, I know exactly what it looks like.
Cow leather comes out that range of browns, from a somewhat light tannish brown if you do it up certain methods to very dark brown if you do it up other methods. And you can dye the hides, of course, in order to get some color variants. But let's say you want to have a swirl pattern in the leather that you're working with, where it's a swirl of darker leather and lighter leather. You could bioprint a hide that is that swirl already effectively programmed in, where the lighter sections are actually just pig leather or pig hide, and the darker sections are cowhide. And also, one of the other things that you can do with bioprinted leathers is you can very easily do reinforced leathers. So, for instance, let's say that you want a reinforced leather for something. Pick whatever sort of deal that you want the reinforced leather for. What you can do is you can set down a mesh of some sort. Let's say you want a very lightweight but strongly reinforced hide, so you put down a carbon fiber mesh. And then you print in and around the carbon fiber mesh. And you cover over the top of the carbon fiber mesh and the back of the carbon fiber mesh. Now you have a hide that is carbon fiber reinforced.
Yeah, or graphene too.
Yep. And you can do this with a bunch of different materials, where you can get a reinforced hide by bioprinting the hide into whatever mesh you want.
So the only thing with that is from a strength standpoint, you don't necessarily reinforce to get a light, a very thin weight, strong leather. What you'll do is you will use a heavier weight leather if you're going for strength. You use a lighter weight leather if you're going for flexibility.
That's what you currently do, yes.
Right.
But
So
with the
We are speaking in the hypothetical here. Although I can really see that being a big product in use for like like motorcycle gear and stuff like that. You get into a little tussle, someone tries to stab you, but boom, you got your reinforced leather vest on.
Yeah, no, it's still at a plane. It's at a plane load. It's not going to work. A hardened leather, a boiled leather will still be better than a reinforced in that case.
Depending on what sort of reinforcement you use. Because let's say you are making your hide that you're bioprinting, and your reinforcement is aramid reinforcement. For those who don't know, one of the ways that you can make bulletproof equipment is by using
a lot
aramid.
of paper. Oh.
Well, aramid is one of the standards. In fact, the Hollywood...
Kevlar is an aramid.
Yep. The Hollywood bank robbery that I've mentioned several times on stream, they made their bulletproof attire out of aramid fabrics. So if you reinforce with aramid in your leather, then...
I mean, yeah, but doesn't 5.56 just like blow straight through that?
Yes.
Depends on how thick and what other sorts of processes are done to it.
Because here's my only thing with that, right? Because if shit hits the fan, we're not worried about, you're worried about like legit people who were prepared, because there are good guy preppers and there are bad guy preppers, So it's like, I don't know if we should even waste time with that. Maybe we should just stick to titanium plates and get some carriers,
Well, the thing is that you have different sorts of people that would be looking for different things. So yeah, if you're looking for the high caliber protection, then you would go for different solutions. Whereas if, let's say it's a celebrity that's worried about just a crackpot fan.
Oh yeah, they don't want to get John Lennon.
Yeah, John Lennoning them. Then if they could have something that looks like a leather jacket by all outward appearance, but in fact is a properly reinforced bioprinted leather, then you could have something that looks just fashionable that has a secondary use.
Although I hate to be that guy to bring it up, but I mean, there already are Kevlar like reinforced suits and stuff like that look just like normal clothes. Like they got hoodies and stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see where the market would be on this. So let's expand this idea a little more.
It'd be being able to make it so that it's leather, because like you said, there's the reinforced suits that look like standard suits. And that works when you're dressed up. If you're trying to look like you're just in your blue jeans, t-shirt, and a jacket.
Yeah, you want to look like a cool, tough guy.
Yeah, which is a common look for a lot of people in Hollywood. They're famous for play acting, and they continue that even in their outside life. So
yeah, they're like, I want to look like I go outdoors, but I really stay inside all the time.
Yep. So yeah, with being able to do reinforced leathers, you'd be able to sell to people like that, as well as just various other interesting uses for it, because you can do, like I said, all the leather clothing being reinforced. That's one use. You could do reinforced motorcycle gear rather than going for just thicker leather in order to be able to handle the abrasion more. You can go for a reinforced leather and then allow for you to wear a padded thing underneath rather than having the reinforced or the thicker leather and the padding being too much and kind of restricting joints.
They already have airbags jackets for motorcycles,
Yep.
Yeah. The only thing is the complexity that you're talking about with essentially co-bonding an aramid fiber with a leather is an unnecessary process, because it's actually very easy to essentially laminate leather as it is with a secondary fiber just by gluing and sewing. Right? If you use a solid contact cement, you can bond any other fabric to the flesh side or even the grain side of leather, and it will react as if it's the same piece of fabric. It will react as one, and then you just sew to reinforce the edges so it doesn't peel up on you.
If humanity just worked in what was the most sensible and pragmatic solution, we would have a lot of things that we currently don't suddenly disappear.
Yeah.
Like communism.
Well, yes and no, because again, it's the extra process or the extra complexity of a process. The market will only sustain the novelty for so long.
As long as it's cost effective.
So if the cost of that co-bond process becomes cheaper than conventional laminating, even in a factory setting, then sure. If it's still going to be cheaper to just bioprint your leather and then bond and sew later on down the line, okay. If it's not, then that process will go the way of the dodo. It may find something else where you may embed a fiber inside of the leather, but then you're unnecessarily complicating the process.
Potentially.
And the market may not sustain it.
Potentially. These are all things that could happen, not things that I'm saying would absolutely happen. So these are things that the bioprinting of leather opens up the possibility to do. Not necessarily that, because we're going to be bioprinting, because I'm not even sure that we will absolutely be bioprinting. It makes sense that we would go to bioprinting to me. And because we're bioprinting, these things become possible. Now, whether all of them, some of them, or none of them are put into effect is an entirely different matter. It's just that these are things that can happen, which is kind of fucking cool just on the face of it.
Yeah.
You know, while all of those do make sense, what doesn't make sense is why you haven't liked the video and subscribed. Tripped up over my words there, but if you're watching this in the future, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe for more Minions content like this. This is the deepest conversation I've ever been involved in when it comes to leatherworking. So for more leatherworking conversations,
what have I done?
Like the video and come back again.
Welcome to the Sanguine show.
See, this is why I love just being able to go off on whatever the fuck we decide to go off on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I'm fascinated about that I have not been able to devote all my time in order to pursue. So being able to talk to people that have interests that align with mine or don't align with mine allows me to kind of go into shit that I want to go into.
Spurged.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties of the Minions, and it always has been, to my mind, that we have people of vastly different interests that are passionate about different topics, and we get to talk about whatever the fuck we want.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being educated about stuff. Like nobody really knows what the future's gonna bring. So having little tricks like, stuff like that, pulling it out of your pocket is no shade. And let's be real, if there was ever a solar flare, how many people are gonna be fucked? Not saying that's
most.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah. I'm a cripple. I'm fucked no matter what.
Yeah.
So
interestingly enough, the people that are currently fucking themselves over in an entirely different fashion would be the least fucked over, because the ones that are constantly worried about, the electrical signals leaking out of these devices, let me put a Faraday cage around it.
Yeah, Faraday cage, baby.
So they're currently fucking all of their wireless and electronic signals and all that shit. But once that solar flare takes out everyone else's tech and they go, hold on a moment, take it off, this shit's still working.
Two comments. One, let's not mistake a solar flare for a CMI, and 2, if the rest of the network's fucked, the phone will still not work. The rest of the network's fucked.
Well, it depends for other things.
Well, we do have satellite phones and stuff.
And it also depends on what sort of kit you're talking about, because people that are
ham radios,
that they're throwing fucking Faraday cages around their generators. Because they're worried about the electrical signal coming out of the generator. The fuck?
Coming out of it.
I mean, there is an EM field out of the generator, but good grief.
Like I said, it's those nut jobs that if there's an
bless
EMP
their hearts,
it's better to put one around your car.
Yeah, if there's an EMP or some shit, it's suddenly okay. Everyone's tech is fucked, right? Well, my generator's working. The fuck?
I shouldn't have paid $1,000 for that Glock slide that counts my ammo.
Yeah.
I stuck it in a shit ton of Faraday cages and other types of shielding because I really didn't want to have to deal with the electric signals going into my brain. Your generators work? Yes. We're taking it. Fine.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
The nut jobs might actually become useful because their shit isn't broken because of that.
Well, they're the ones that everybody's gonna freaking like go after if the food supply chain ever collapses, because they're the ones with 3 years worth of canned shit in their basement.
Oh yeah, the preppers are set when it comes to food.
Mm-hmm.
Which that just reminded me of a question that I asked ages ago, and I'm talking, I think, before our 100th episode on Minions. If there was some apocalyptic situation where it is the stereotypical movie apocalypse, zombies, some shit like that.
Hell yeah.
What is your go-to plan? What is the first place that you go to raid?
No, hide in place. Shelter in place for 3 months. You need to have at least 3 months worth of food and water stored. That's the best, because after that, everything's going to calm down, at least for a little bit, unless factions in your area started rising up and asking for taxes,
Anyone else have their immediate go-to?
No.
So we have one for shelter in place. We have...
My plan is go up the peninsula, a place I know very, very well, and just survive up there. I mean, the peninsula just north of where I live. I grew up there.
Because anyone else? So go up into wooded area.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
place.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes up here. I mean, honestly, Canada is kind of vast, and there's really only 37 million of us. So, if you really wanted to get lost, you probably could.
Uh-huh.
That's the best case.
Yeah, but there's a good chance you could die because there's a lot of things here, just like down there, that can eat you.
Grizzly bears, wolves, coyotes,
cougars, shit. So you just really want to have the ability to like replace shit. Like if you're using a gun, be prepared to replace your bullets.
Uh-huh.
See, there's 3 locations that I would raid immediately. And they all have a very specific reason. The 3 are library.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn it. That's a good one.
Yep. Knowledge is power.
Uh-huh.
Universities.
Interesting. We have science stuff there normally.
They have
chemistry
science labs. Exactly. And then Votech schools.
Machine shops.
Power tools. Yeah, there we go, boys. We're going to survive.
Those are my 3 raid locations right off the bat.
Yeah, that's smart. I'm writing that down.
And Chaos has a good one as well. Pharmaceutical warehouses that you know of in the area. And that goes somewhat into what I was thinking when it comes to rating the colleges, because rating the libraries makes sense. You get a bunch of different books on a bunch of different topics, from basic shit to fairly advanced. Rating the colleges, you get even more advanced and specialized info.
Well, even with fun fact: if anybody has ever seen the movie Day After Tomorrow, there is a segment in there where they are rating the New York Public Library for fuel for the fireplace. There's something to be said for preserving classic literature.
Yep.
But that entire section on tax law, ain't nobody need that.
Yep.
Hey, there we go. That's right.
So get the classics because they will entertain you into whatever post-apocalyptic world you're walking into.
Well, also architecture, design. That's one of the most important things too, because I mean, architecture is what brought us out of the Dark Ages.
And all the how-to books.
Well, isn't it fascinating that they seem to really want to burn down all those churches? You know, it's one of those things where, like, you know, the theology aside, the fact that they're destroying such beautiful architecture and how much went into those buildings.
Yep.
Oh.
But,
I like, do you know how many people died making that shit?
And when it came to rating the science departments, especially if they have a farm department,
yes,
get all the books on here's how you make this drug, here's the effects of this drug, here's how you make this
even
one.
windmills.
Here's the effects. Yep. So raid the bio, chem, phys, and farm departments. Get all that shit, and then the Votech is
real
all
fast,
for
dude.
the
Green Badger makes a really good point. Farm shops and also pet supply stores, because normally they have medicine there as well.
Yep. Yeah, those would be my 4th and 5th.
Fair enough.
Well, with the knowledge thing, it's all written words. You can have that on a single dumb drive. It's not that much space.
Yeah, but if the electronics are dead, if tech is dead,
if
but you got the Faraday cage, you know.
Well, yeah, but again, you need power to run it, and that's the thing. It's we've consolidated so much of our knowledge. We've created an intangible library of Alexandria in the internet. So much of our knowledge is stored digitally now. If something were to happen to Google servers, we are royally fucked as a species.
And the way that I view it is that by getting the information that I would be grabbing on all the textbooks and how-to books and all that shit, I would be gaining all the information so that we could be able to restart the shit, so that we could go to one of the power plants and figure out, okay, how do we get this motherfucker back up and running?
Oh my god! You know what? I just got to bring up. It was one of the first chats that was in here. Hold on, let me see. It was by Assassin of the Gray. Hashtag. Oh shit, where is it? Hashtag build a bridge. There we go. And that not only does that embody the whole archetype of Rick the leader, the proud father, bringing a family of strangers together, but rebuilding society. And I just want to salute you, Assassin of the Gray, for making us go all the way back to the beginning of the stream to circle around and say, you're the one.
Just to comment on something you said a little bit ago, Useless, do not ever discount a charging moose. That'll kill you.
Don't do that, and don't assume that just because you're in your vehicle that's going to save you either, because they they can still.
Don't underestimate a charging moose. Don't underestimate a stationary moose either.
Yeah, no, just a little kick. They just need a little kick.
Don't look the moose in the eyes.
I've seen the results of what happens when
you think the moose thinks that you're really cute and it's going to boop you on the nose, but then it doesn't feel so good.
No.
All of this, don't underestimate X animal. just reminds me of perhaps one of the greatest train wreck movies that you can possibly imagine. Have any of you ever heard of a movie named Roar?
Nope.
No.
No.
Roar's story in the movie is absolute shit. Don't watch it for the actual story in the movie. Look into the story behind the movie and then watch it for that shit. Because no animals were harmed in that in the making of that movie. 78 cast members were harmed in the making of the movie.
No animals.
Right? I thought
Fuck
Ben-Hur
animals
was
at that
bad with
point,
the chariot race.
And it had... There's a scene where an elephant is kind of pissed off and picks up a person and snaps their leg.
That really happened?
Yeah, that was not written into the script.
Oh.
The actress's leg snapped.
Ooh. Yeah, no.
Well, I think you ever watched the making of Jaws, where
No.
Steven Spielberg commits a war crime in order to get the opening attack scene?
I have not heard about this.
Oh, so when they shot the spoiler alert, if you have never seen Jaws, I don't know at this point. If you haven't, whatever, I can't help you. But in order to get the sound, in order to shoot that scene, the actress who played Christy, whatever the fuck her name is, was on a pulley, was strapped into a pulley system with a single belt around her waist, and they had two teams of like 6 or 8 guys on the beach running back and forth with this cable to yank her through the water as if the shark is pulling her.
Ah.
So one, nearly snapping her spine.
Yep.
Doing that. But in order to get the sound of her screams, Steven Spielberg basically waterboarded her.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like, have any of you ever
That's kind of hot.
Have any of you ever heard of the movie Heaven's Gate? Not the cult, the movie Heaven's Gate.
Exactly.
I can't say yes with any certainty.
So Heaven's Gate is the movie that kind of prompted the no animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
Oh no. Mitzi's not watching, is she? Okay,
they
good.
blew up a horse by accident.
Jesus.
You know, as
blew
you
up
do.
a horse and almost blew up the rider. The rider survived his injuries and survived the formerly horse shrapnel that hit him.
Can't imagine where either.
Ugh.
But yeah,
Hooves.
Post-horse.
Flying hooves. Yeesh.
he was rushed to the hospital. The horse was just blown the fuck up.
Like the whale.
And
They fed it too many beans.
Yeah.
it was during a battle scene. So there's people that will sometimes watch the movie because there's a bunch of points where you're going, someone probably got injured in that, because a fuck ton of people got injured in the filming of this movie. It's almost like Roar in the number of people that got injured. But also...
Oh, yeah, that makes it good. I mean, not for them, but for us.
Yeah, a good number of animals, a good number of people got injured in this movie. So there are people that will watch this movie, and there's this one point where you see an explosion and you hear a horse scream, and everyone immediately goes, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's during this massive battle scene in the movie where they hadn't clearly marked where all of the hidden explosives were.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, that resulted
happened.
That resulted in a horse being blown the fuck up.
Poor horse.
And it is this absolutely monstrous battle scene where it is ridiculous to the scale that it's done. Because it's done in like 1920s battle scene scale, but it was made in, I want to say it was late 80s, early 90s. And it was just absolutely insane in its scale and just what the fuck. But like I said, they didn't properly mark where they planted all the explosives. So several people ended up getting a bit too close to explosives. Animals got too close to explosives. One animal and one person got way too close to explosives.
And because we're talking late 80s, we're not talking modern show explosives. We're talking small amounts of actual boom.
We're talking effectively buried landmines.
Oops.
That were powered to be cannon strikes.
Do, 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 do.
So they overdid it, huh?
Oh, yeah, it was... It is one of those movies that's just a, what the fuck?
Where are they
It's
thinking?
kind of like Disney throwing a bunch of lemmings into the water. Which, I know I've mentioned that on stream before.
Probably.
And it is, again, just one of those things that's fantastically fucked, and it's one of the main reasons why people have the idea that lemmings will just go running off a cliff to commit suicide. Disney was trying to film this because it was a myth at the time that they had heard. So they were trying to get evidence of this. The lemmings were less than willing in order to provide that evidence. So they took a number of lemmings. They shot it fairly close up, so it wasn't a massive number that they used, but they used a number of lemmings. They stuck them on a turntable, got them dizzy as shit, released them towards this drop-off into a river, and then encouraged the lemmings along. And got the shot that they were looking for.
R.I.P.
Fuck Disney.
Everyone put F's in the chat for the lemmings.
And yeah, it happens a lot, Mr. Yes. I have been reading chat. I've been going into the stream of consciousness that I had.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the Twilight Zone, I hadn't heard about that specific one. That specific incident. But yeah, it's happened a fair number of times, especially in old school cinema, where this massive thing happened. Oh yeah, we killed like 4 people in the filming of this movie.
It happens on movies, though.
Oh my god, dude.
But yeah, it's happened with things falling on people, with sets being not as safe as they were supposed to be, with let's blow up a horse by accident.
Now, animals aside, is it wrong that I don't feel a lot of remorse considering what Hollywood has been since the 1930s?
See, here's the thing. The fucked up nature of Hollywood has been increasing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there were old school Hollywood stars that, yeah, some of them were fucked. Those tended to be the ones that the others would look at and go, the fuck is wrong with you? And then it reached a point where it was that some of them weren't fucked. And the ones that were would look at them and go, the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like our beautiful boy, Chris Pratt.
When that change happened, that Hollywood really became an issue. Yeah, there was scummy shit going on. The casting couch was something that had happened for small parts, especially for goddamn ages. And it shouldn't have happened. I still say that the biggest victims to the casting couch are the actresses that would have received a role had it not been for this other one performing on their back spectacularly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not really that bad when you think about it. Like, they weren't coerced. Now, if there was coercion involved, yeah. But I mean, if you're just going to go there and be like, okay, this is what you got to do, you have to have strong morals as a person in the world. And if something violates your morals and you do it anyway, then one, you're not a strong person, and two, your dad should have taught you better.
That's what I'm saying. That when it comes to the vast majority of the women that came forward, there were a couple exceptions. There was, I think, one or two that were underaged at the time. Yep, that was fucked up.
That shit's horrendous.
And absolutely deserves prison sentences. There was I think it was an Italian model that was trying to get into Hollywood. And Weinstein... Is it Weinstein or Weinstein?
Weinstein.
Weinstein, yeah.
I always want to make sure that I get that right, because there's Brett Weinstein.
Yeah, he's the cool guy. He's the science guy.
Yeah, I don't want to associate him by saying the wrong name. But yeah, when it came to the sexual misconduct, there was an Italian actress that was trying to get into Hollywood, or Italian model that was trying to get into Hollywood. She was given the offer of, look, you can fuck me and get the part. She declined. And then he tried to force the issue. And she immediately left, went to the police, reported it, got all of it reported, then wore a wire in order to get evidence, did all that, returned with all that evidence, and nothing happened. That's one of the cases where I'm going, no, that is fucked.
Yeah, that's fucked. But I mean, they used it now, and I mean, he's getting his cheeks clapped in prison now. So
yeah, but the fact that those people were there, those are the victims. And like I said, the actresses who didn't get the part because some other actress decided that she would get on her back, those are the victims of that.
Exactly. Because if like we live in a country where they say that the law and that justice is true, it really makes you lose faith in the system when you really want the justice to be done and you really want what you think is considered to be the right thing to be done, and it just gets ignored because it's a rich, famous person. Dude, it makes me fucking sick.
And the thing that pisses me off is it goes back to an old Winston Churchill joke. Winston Churchill was at a party, and I think it was Lady Astor that he did this with. Lady Astor saw another English gentleman walk in with a very, very young date. Not illegally young, but young enough that they immediately went, oh, she's an escort. And they started making snide comments about this woman that had been brought to this event. Winston Churchill overheard this, grabbed one of the servers, who was a fairly attractive man, and walked over to the table and went, excuse me, ladies, would you sleep with this man for £1 million? And a number of them kind of giggled, and the response was, well, for $1 million. And he went, okay, fantastic. Would you sleep with this man for a penny? Mr. Churchill, what type of women do you think we are? That's already been determined, madam. We're just haggling.
Oh, that's so good, dude.
That's Winston Churchill.
That's what it came down to for a lot of the people that were claiming, he fucked me and I got a movie role that started my career, and that's wrong. No, you decided that you were a whore. You decided on the price of being a whore. And then after the fact, you don't like the fact that you whored yourself out, so now you're trying to get recompense because the price that you decided was fair and square at the time, you're now deciding is not enough.
Yeah. And just to be clear, real fast, we're not talking about people who were taken advantage of, or people.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who knowingly and willingly accepted.
Yeah, I'm not talking about underage girls that get roped into this. That shit's fucked. Go through the fullest force of the law and absolutely bend that motherfucker over a barrel. The people that are actually assaulted and actually attacked, like the one, like I said, I think it was an Italian model turned actress that said, no, I will not fuck you for this part, and he tried to force the matter. That's an actual victim.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that you go, well, I do really want to be famous.
I mean, she did all
you
the right
have 5
things.
minutes.
She is the example of somebody who did all the right things. She didn't go onto Twitter to talk about it. She didn't go onto Facebook to talk about it. She didn't hold on to it for 30 years, only to bring it out of nowhere and then not recall anything. She recorded everything at the time, which is what you're supposed to do. And that's why it's horrendous.
Yeah.
And they want to make every case out to be that. And yeah, they
just aren't. There were
aren't.
Shit ton of them that were told, well, if you want this part, you have to fuck me. And they went, I really do want to be an actress. You have 5 minutes. And I'm sorry, if that's your response, you were not raped. You were not sexually assaulted. There was nothing untoward other than this was a prostitution deal, which technically in the state at the time was illegal. So if you want to say that a crime was done, yes, he was soliciting prostitution and you were providing prostitution.
Now, does that not, like, that doesn't mean it's not right? Like, you know, I understand,
fucked,
like,
but it's
you know,
not illegal.
Yeah.
It's something that, that's a dirty son of a bitch. He should have never been given power. But he has power.
Yeah.
Or had power.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things. And I like the turn of phrase that I ended up coming up with when it came to this. It's what you get when someone has high ideas when they're gaining power and low morals once they've gained it.
Mm.
Because you see this happen constantly. Someone will say that they're out to change the world, and then they get power. And suddenly they're demanding more power, and they're came from low means, and now they have a massive collection of clothing and shoes, and they are rubbing elbows with the upper crust, and they rather enjoy that. And how dare you, filthy plebeian, try to say that they aren't living up to what they're doing. You're in the cheap seats. And for those who missed the references and direct quotes, yes, AOC. It happens constantly, where you will have people that they will say the right things to gain power.
Mm-hmm.
And they might have even believed what they were saying at some point along the line as they were gaining power. But then they realize that power is nice.
Yep.
And it's kind of like we used to have a class of statesmen when it came to the US that they were given power against their will. They accepted the power, and then once they could, they fucked off again. That's what happened with our first fucking president. George Washington did not want power. He actively tried to go, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. I said I don't fucking want it. You're the only person that we're willing to give it to. Fine! And then he served 2 terms, and then he went, I'm fucking off back to my home.
A minor correction, though I might be misunderstanding you. It wasn't just George Washington. Every single president willingly stepped down after 2 terms and never ran for a third up until Teddy Roosevelt. He was the first person.
Wrong Roosevelt.
Wrong Roosevelt. It was FDR.
It was his cousin.
He ran successfully for a 3rd term.
But that was because of a war, though.
Donkey, you're talking out your ass because
No,
what happened?
no,
yes, you
no,
are. Yes,
no.
you are.
No,
Shut
because
the
they
fuck
can't
up
legally
or I
run
will
3
mute
terms.
you. Because here's the deal: when it came to Teddy, what Teddy did was Teddy got put in office by the president that he was serving being assassinated. So he became the youngest man to ever serve as president, not the youngest man to ever be elected. That was,
and by the definition
JFK.
of the Constitution at the time, served a full term.
No, by the definition of the Constitution at the time, he did not. So there were actually people that were pushing him to run for a 3rd term. He ran for 1 term, then he stepped down, named Taft his successor, backed Taft. Taft won. Then after Taft's term, Teddy went, Taft fucked it up. The other party is going to fuck it up. I'll run again. He ran non-contiguously.
That is still attempting for 3.
No, that is not, because it has always been the policy that you can't have more than 2 contiguous, not that you can only have 2. The person that broke the tradition was the other Roosevelt, not Teddy Roosevelt, but FDR, who did several goes all in a row. And there were, if I'm not mistaken, there were other presidents before Teddy Roosevelt that ran for 2, stepped down, came back trying to run for another. I don't think any of them won re-election.
They didn't.
But there were several that made a go of it because the rule was 2 in a row.
Several, I think, did get a little bit into it, Grant being an example, but none of them passed the convention stage until, well, technically Teddy.
So
Teddy didn't go through...
Teddy's first term, so we find ourselves in a very similar position right now because of the Alzheimer's patient currently occupying the White House.
Yep.
If he steps down or is yeeted by the 25th Amendment prior to 2022, Kamala Harris can serve up to a maximum of 10 years in the White House.
Yep.
If he gets yeeted after that time, actually no, if he gets yeeted before 2022, she will get 1 additional term. That's it. So they are desperate to get it through 2022.
But to try and get
it's a sad state because, and that's how Teddy Roosevelt wound up in there because William McKinley got shot.
Yep.
And it was late enough in where Teddy Roosevelt was able to serve the remainder of McKinley's term and then run.
Yep. Because he signed on to be vice president.
Well, was forced on by the chief whip.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah, I'm counting
especially in the age.
Well, do you think Trump willingly picked Mike Pence? No, the party was like, no. Here.
Oh god. But he wasn't too bad until he betrayed him at the end.
Yeah.
I more think it was a consensus between Trump and Pence. I mean, Trump and the party whips, I should say that.
But yeah, he was named vice president. He served as vice president for, I think it was about 6
a year and change.
I think it was about 6 months, actually. Because I think it was something from like March or April to September. Then he was raised to president because McKinley died.
McKinley served the election of 1898. Sorry, 1896. Inaugurated 97. Died in 1901. So he was after that mystical 2-year mark.
No, he wasn't quite, because
that would be less than a year into his second term. You said 96.
It was.
So we're talking McKinley's second term.
Yeah, right. He was going into McKinley's second term because McKinley had a different vice president during his first term.
Yes.
Then Teddy Roosevelt was named. Teddy Roosevelt was vice president until McKinley died. Then he became president. He served 3 years as president, past when McKinley died. Then he ran for a second term. At that time, the way that a number of people a way that most people had interpreted the tradition was you could run for president twice in a row. So towards the end of his second term, because he had the 3 from one, and then his first term where he actually ran, or his second term as he viewed it and as we view it now, there were a bunch of people saying that the tradition was you could run for president twice in a row. He'd only run once, therefore he should be allowed to run a second go. He himself said, no, I served 2 terms as president. I am going to step down. And the person who I give my blessing to is I give my blessing to Taft. Then Taft was in office from 1909 until 1913, and he had a rather unimpressive presidency. He did some things that were fairly good. He did a lot of things that pissed people off, including a lot of things that pissed Teddy Roosevelt off. Teddy Roosevelt, after seeing that Taft had fucked up what he had intended Taft to do, went, fuck it, I guess I'm going to run again. He had every intention when he first named Taft just to back Taft for 2 terms. It was when Taft fucked up to his mind that he decided that he would run again. He did not get the Republican nomination, so he started the Bull Moose Party.
You don't have to tell me anything more about the 1912 election. I know how badly that went.
Yep. So he did not break tradition by any reasonable interpretation of the tradition. The person that broke the tradition was FDR, not Teddy Roosevelt.
You know what, dude? Fuck the Patriot Party, dude. Trump should just run under the Bull Moose Party next term.
Resurrect the Bull Moose.
It'd be the Raging Bull Party. It wouldn't be the Bull Moose Party.
Hell yeah, dude.
Buddy.
It'll be the Bull
You
Pigeon.
think Woodrow Wilson is bad? Kamala Harris.
You're talking to somebody who is, I don't want either of them in the White House. I'm not happy with what we got right now.
No.
I still think the gun thing is a red herring to get people off of what they're actually doing, though.
No, so this is one thing, and Polly will back me up on this. This is the one area where Joe Biden is a true believer. He's an idiot, but he's a true believer with this.
Yeah, but he won't get anything. Nothing will get passed because there's no way to enforce it.
That doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean jack fucking shit if you can't enforce it.
Well,
they'll do it anyway, and becomes a
let's,
gotcha with it that's enforced by an army of Karens.
That's true, but also you got to imagine, right? Like it's only going to be less than half of the United States who actually follows through with that law, right? That's only going to divide us further. It's a bad game move if he does any executive action. So that's why when he announced it, it was just propositions.
Well, that to act like people on his side, not necessarily him, not necessarily everyone that backed him, but that a sizable element that backed him cares about unity is a bit farcical in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. And the thing is, it's like, right, it's like we talk about the people who back him, but what we look at Obama, right? A whole bunch of hopes and promises. None of it came true. It was the same establishment stuff. Yeah, they're eventually wanting to make, take the guns, defund policing so they can get the UN over here to police our streets for us, and then blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Whatever, that's going a little far down the conspiracy road. But there's no way for any kind of action from that to happen. All they want to do is just make themselves rich. So
yeah, he promised
nothing's...
hope. He promised hope and change, and all that anyone got was hoping that they still had change in their pocket.
But yeah, I mean, he's a do nothing except, make his corporate sponsors money.
I'm not meaning to throw Canada under the bus, but I don't doubt that some of the shit that you guys are seeing up here is probably terrifying some of your like super anti-commies. Which is not a bad thing.
It is.
It's not a bad thing because those guys freaking out is letting normies kind of know.
And speaking out about terrifying shit happening in Canada, I heard about a recent thing that's terrifying shit happening in Canada. C10.
I'm going to step on that immediately. A lot of the C10 crap is speculation based on some vague wordings, but the primary the primary body of C10 is to extend the Canadian Broadcasting Act's provisions on the amount of Canadian-made content shown in Canada, because 35% of content broadcast over TV has to be Canadian-made in Canada. They want to extend that to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, yada, yada, yada.
And YouTube.
That's insane, though. That's what China does. That's literally what China does. They're trying to cut you off from the rest of the world.
No. Monkey, your defense of it is people are really worried about the loose wording of it. And this is what it is. Yeah, the loose wording is what you become worried about whenever it comes to government. You don't.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Government.
Though the loose wording stuff aside, and yes, I am worried about it, but the main body is okay.
No, it isn't.
It's more of the stuff that they don't tell us. It's because you always know that there's more that they're leaving out.
Oh yeah.
And that's really the paranoia up here. It's like I could sit here and be like, it's not as bad as it seems, but honestly, it's the stuff I don't see that has me scared.
Exactly. We're not scared of the dark. We're scared of what's in the dark.
That's basically it. Like, I would love to go march downtown and say my piece, but honestly, at this point, there's really no point to it. All you really do by doing that is put yourself as a target.
And don't.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I'm still somewhat gobsmacked by Donkey's read on this because with your take on a lot of shit, you're now trying to say.
Let me refine my opinion.
Let me express what you're currently saying, and then you can refine your opinion and correct that view. Because what you're currently putting out there is that you aren't overly worried about the government being able to decide what you can see, what is promoted for you to see, and what you can't see, and what is not promoted for you to see. That is the heart of it.
That's 1984 stuff right there.
That's hyperbole.
It's literally
the only
true.
part of C10 I agree with is the grandfathering in the Canadian Broadcasting Standards Act into streaming, which is the same reason why dairy was a big thing of contention in the NAFTA upgrades, because homemade industries are important.
Donkey, your current law, the way that it's applied, was that a movie that was filmed in Canada with mainly Canadian stars and mainly Canadian crews, that being Scott Pilgrim, was not Canadian enough for Canada, whereas a movie that was not shot in Canada, not shot by Canadian production company, not shot with Canadian stars, that was about the murder of Gandhi was sufficiently Canadian.
That's...
Well, that's
What?
just an example of the kind of tyranny that they're trying to exert over you guys. They
Scott
can control
Pilgrim-
what you watch and what you see.
Donkey Scott Pilgrim versus the World was not considered Canadian enough to meet the requirements.
Well, you know
Whereas-
what? I filed all of them because I don't watch TV.
Yep.
Are you
Whereas-
referring to the complaint section of the Broadcast Standards Act?
Nope, I'm referring to the I'm getting this from what I remember from hearing about this in more detail. So a bit of it's a bit squiggly. I remember that exact bit though. So the part that it was referring to was you have certain restrictions on when certain programs can be shown on Canadian television, and they have to meet certain requirements, and there has to be a certain percentage of them at specific times that meet the effectively true Canadian test, for lack of a better word, or lack of a better term for that. And it failed to meet the mark at the same time frame for the same exact... Everything else was held the same, effectively. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which again was shot in Canada, using Canadian actors, using Canadian extras, using Canadian crews, was not considered Canadian enough. Whereas the movie about Gandhi being murdered...
Who was the publication and distribution companies for Scott Pilgrim?
Don't remember off the top of my head.
But it's
Check.
probably American. But
They
but
probably
look,
were
man,
both American. There's the big difference.
But here's the thing: it shouldn't be a difference, because when the government can tell you, like, and who controls the standards? It's another ABC company, right? You know, an Alphabet Soup Corporation or department of the
It
government.
is the Canadian Public Broadcast Standards Board.
Okay, so this kind of gets into the freedom litmus test that Sanguine was talking about earlier.
That was
I think it was before the
yes.
stream. Yeah.
So, to catch everyone up on that, there's something that I ended up getting into on Twitter, which drove me crazy, because someone sent... You've heard me say this, I don't know about how many different articles and various bits of bullshit. Someone decided that in order to win an argument, they would cite something. So they cited a source that reported that it was looking into the relation between the right to bear arms within a society and the freedom of that society. And in its analysis of the right to bear arms and the freedom of the society, they used a couple different metrics, and I dug into both of the main ones, as well as looked at the rest of the work. The rest of the work in and of itself failed to show what it said that it showed. The source material that it used for half of its stats came from the Freedom House, which is a organization that rates countries on their relative freedom. So they have a methodology section, and their methodology section is really solid. The problem is that they don't apply a fucking thing from it. Because in their methodology section, under their freedom of speech heading, they have a number of different things that, according to their methodology, is supposed to subtract from the overall score for freedom of speech. The things that are supposed to subtract from the score are state-controlled media is supposed to subtract from the score, having blasphemy laws, laws that restrict the words that can be used to express ideas or the ideas that can be expressed, and laws that prohibit political attacks on politicians and those in power. So I went, okay, that sounds like a really good way of kind of rating an area on its level of freedom of speech. If it has state-run media, that is less free than if it doesn't have state-run media. Would everyone agree that that's a fair statement?
Yeah.
True and good.
If it has blasphemy laws or any of those other speech restriction laws, then that is also less free than if it didn't have those laws. Everyone agree?
Yeah.
Big true.
And if it has built into law that you aren't allowed to call out your politicians, those that are in power, then it is less free on an objective level. Everyone agree again?
Oh, yeah.
Very true.
So I decided to look at a country that I know that has laws that govern speech. Oh, also one of the other standards was if it had a state religion. That was also under the freedom of expression heading. And that makes sense to everyone as well, right? If a country has a state religion, that's less free than if a country does not have a state religion.
True.
True.
So I looked at a country that I know for a fact has a state religion. I looked at a country, same country, that I know for a fact has laws on the books that prohibit you from using certain types of language when talking about the politicians that are in charge. Same country also had laws on the books that prohibit hate speech and a bunch of other different types of speech, which would limit the words that can be used as well as the ideas that can be expressed. Everyone agree with those, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it's also a country that in certain parts of it have blasphemy laws still on the books. So this seems like it would be really easy to tell if this country had any sort of detriment to its final score in that one heading, right? Because it fails on the major criteria that were listed. And I can understand it going, well, it doesn't fail entirely, so we're just going to subtract partial points because yes, they're there, they aren't in full force. So I could make allowance for it not being a 0 in that, because I don't think that the country should get a 0 in that category. But it should have something less than a perfect score. So I looked at England, looked at the UK, which has all the things that I mentioned. Which means that it should get a lower score for its freedom of speech and freedom of expression category by this metric. Because that was the scale that they said that they would use. The UK had a perfect freedom of speech and expression score.
Because of course they did.
How is it that you outline your criteria and then
false
when something fails at every step of your criteria, you still give it a perfect score?
Yep.
Like I said, I could have understood if they had subtracted a fractional point rather than a full point, because, yeah, the state religion in the UK is not as strictly enforced as
like Russia.
In Russia or in any Islamic
like the African countries.
Russia doesn't have a state religion.
Russia's official state religion is Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah, it's the Russian Orthodox variant of Eastern Orthodox.
That's a recent development.
Yeah.
Yeah, Putin put it into place.
Prior to the Lenin shit, it was basically the same religion.
Right, yep. But the state cannot compete with the church in terms of controlling the faith of its populace.
That's American standards of freedom you're talking about right there.
Yep. Which, like I said, I could understand going, we aren't going to subtract a full point. So I could have been perfectly fine if it had even just had a 3 out of 4 effectively, rather than perfect marks. If it had had a 75% on that score, absolutely would have gone, yep, I'm fine with that. But no, they did not have that. And let me quickly pull it up because I quickly glanced at it, but I can't remember when I glanced at it because I went through England more thoroughly after noticing that. It was my guinea pig. But let me quickly pull up because I'm curious. Since they did not have the US in the top ranking by a fair bit. And I'm curious what the US, which has none of those things mentioned, comes out in when it comes to the scoring. So let me quickly click through this.
Well, I mean, I guess another aspect to view, another lens to view this situation from would be through the idea of the national economy, right? If you're very, you want to keep your stuff steady, and you can kind of turn towards America when it comes to that because our states have different economies in the entire nation. It's not the same thing as the federal economy and all the money that they're getting. Each state has its own economy, and how it's run is, it's dealt with stuff like that. But I wouldn't want to see, just pulling an example from my thing, I wouldn't want to see only Florida, like shows and television from Florida just blasted on TV. And I know that sounds like, oh, why not? It's good for the economy of that particular state. But who even watches TV? Normies, right? And so what we're trying to do, I guess in simple ways for people who, aren't fully politically active or aware of, the battle against tyranny that's an ever-fighting battle that literally will almost probably never end. You don't want the normies to go back to sleeping status, and just having a completely butchered type of television thing like that would kind of put them back into sleeping status.
I can't argue with that. Canadian television is a little bit cooked.
Yeah, it has been for a long time. I do miss the one about the dog, though. I think it was Hooch or something like that.
Huh?
Oh, you're going before my time.
Yeah, probably.
What, the
But
beetle?
this dog that would run around from town to town. It was just he'd meet you and then help you out of your problems and then run off. And it was just
I know what you're referring
wholesome.
to.
Typically Canadian too. Oh yeah, there's just this random dog. Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, what does he do? Oh, he just goes around and helps people. Well, okay. He has a barrel of maple syrup strapped around his neck. I heard your blankets are dry.
Okay, so I just looked it up, and in the free and independent media, it gets a 75%, the US, whereas in the UK and Canada, I checked Canada as well, they get 100%.
What?
That's pretty boy Trudeau right there.
In the areas where there's actually state-run media, it gets 100%. In the area that does not have state-run media,
I don't think they understand what the word state-run media means.
They got 75%.
I think they do it because the BBC is just paid by the government. It's not really run by the government.
The BBC and CBC are government funded, but their actual actions are completely independent.
Except
Well, what happens when they say stuff that the government doesn't like?
They get less money next year. That's what happens.
Look back at the Harper years. The CBC was not friendly to Harper.
Yeah, that seems to be a common problem when it comes to government-run media. If it's a person on one end of the spectrum, they don't seem to ever have to come up for air, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, and you can look at the
And if
media
it's
for
on the
Trump
other
too.
side.
It's like, and we see that they obviously lead towards a certain bias here in America. And then you look at who's funding them. Oh, giant corporations like Disney. Okay, and where do they get money from too? Oh, China. A lot of money comes from China for Disney. Oh, why did our current sitting president send his son to China to get $5 million that he doesn't have to pay back. Well, why was his son on the board? Oh, dude, that we will never. Yeah. Oh, billion. Yeah. Why was his son on the board of an electric company in Ukraine? And why are tensions now suddenly rising in Ukraine? Oh, because the people on that side want us to go to war with Russia because they want the power so they can get in pocket with China instead of going to war with China and just being all right with Russia. It's the most insane shit ever, dude. I don't know how anyone can trust anything that the news says, bro.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure the breaking point for a lot of people, for a lot of these wonderful little normies who have been asleep or not paying attention or just, weren't really sure if they believed what they were seeing, was the Micaiah Bryant thing in was it Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
When you have pundit after pundit after pundit saying, no, you should let teenagers have knife fights. And a bunch of armies went,
who hasn't had a teenage knife fight?
Me.
The only people that I know who've ever been in a knife fight were people that I certainly didn't hang out with because they were the wrong tracks.
Because they were the kind of people who would get in a knife fight.
And they usually,
The worst fight I ever got in my teenage years was swinging around a couple of 2x4s.
As someone who actually was an unarmed person dealing with someone who had a knife, they're extremely rare. They aren't common by any stretch of the imagination. That's why most of you probably don't have a sacrifice scar on one of your arms or in one of your hands. I have a
the coolest shit, though. I'd love that story. As long as I survive.
I have a sacrifice scar on my left hand because...
See, and that's badass.
It was better than it going into my body elsewhere. So, small cut on the inside of my hand? Sure. Fuck it. That's worth not having it in my lung.
I just gave him my wallet when I was mugged, so you know.
But yeah, the extent that they were going to, and they just allow kids to have knife fights. And was it really the number of people that I saw, they're trained in de-escalation, they should have de-escalated. Did you watch the full video? He shows up, she bum rushes one person, takes that person to the ground, might have stabbed him. I haven't heard whether that person was stabbed or not. But
she wasn't, thank Christ. The one on the ground got kicked in the head.
Yeah, she got then stomped on. Her head was stomped by the would-be murderer's father. And then she gets up from that. The cop sees the knife, immediately says, "Drop the knife, stop, drop the knife." She doesn't. She pulls back in order to bring that knife back into Pink Girl's head or neck, it looked like, maybe upper chest. And
a vital area, shall we say.
Yeah. At that point, it's now a threat of great bodily harm, grievous bodily injury, whichever way you want to phrase it, or possibly death, a lethal injury. And at that point, all parts of the use of force continuum are fair game. So he had the choice of what's the most efficient and effective way of stopping this.
What's already in Buddy's hands.
Yeah.
He had a couple different options on his belt that he could have gone for. So people keep saying he should have gone for a taser.
Okay,
taser wasn't what was in his hands at the time.
Yeah, hang on. Let me holster my sidearm, reach across my body, draw my taser, and hope that I can hit something in a 3-foot circle, not the girl who's about to be stabbed.
Yeah.
And
also,
one prong hits Pink Girl, one prong hits the other. Nothing happens.
If you hit her hand, that bullet isn't going to go straight through her hand and into the face of the girl. Like
every single person I have seen who was way down on this, who was a shooter like me, has said this guy needs a marksmanship award now.
Yep. Yeah, to go through all
For
of
real,
the things
dude?
that people have said about this.
2 consecutive double taps to center mass on the fly.
With a handgun.
with a handgun at let's face it, it was handgun range, but still, right? A snap, 2 quick double taps in almost no discernible gap between the 2 of them. All 4 of them hitting his target center mass as intended, leaving a bystander unharmed.
Yep.
The man deserves a medal
literally
for that
right next to him.
alone.
To go through all of the things that people say that he should have done. Let's go through them in order. So first up, there were the people saying he should have disarmed her. Okay,
she's 10 feet away. Go ahead, try it.
I think she was more than 10 feet. It looked like she was more on the 5 to 7 yards almost.
The best angle for that is the garage video, and being a shooter, that it didn't quite look like he was at that mystical 21-foot mark yet. She was inside of that.
Okay, I would then hazard more around the 5-yard mark rather than just 10 feet, because 10 feet, if you're talking height, 10 feet is a fuck ton when you're looking at someone. If you meet a 10-foot tall person, that's a big ass person.
Also known as Sanguine.
Not quite that. So if you're talking 10 feet of on the ground, though, 10 feet is an extremely short distance.
Agree.
5 yards is one of those distances that then you start going, oh yeah, there's a bit of space between them.
I'm just stepping away.
Yeah,
for
like
a second.
15
I'll be
feet.
right back.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that it was probably around the 5-yard mark. I could be wrong. Could have been a bit less than 5 yards. Let's say 4 to 5 yards. Everyone content with that? Yep. So 4 to 5 yard distance. So she's mid-stab already. You wanted him to disarm her. So you wanted him to quickly holster his sidearm, shoot the gap, and by shoot the gap, I'm talking a football term of charge, and then manage to hook her arm, isolate the wrist of the hand that the knife is in, and wrench it so that she then drops the knife. All in the same time that it would take her to bring her arm forward.
Yeah.
That doesn't math.
Well, math ain't their strong suit.
You could have this person be fucking shape-shifting between the people that have the greatest capability, not just shape-shifting, let's say shape-shifting and also skill-shifting somehow. Between the people that have the greatest chance at each of these feats. You could have him be Usain Bolt for shooting that 10-yard or that 10 to 15-foot gap. And she would probably still already get that knife in the girl.
Oh, no.
Before he gets there.
Girl in pink is getting shanked.
Yep. So he could shift between Usain Bolt for the dash, then go immediately from Usain Bolt to, let's say, he's now suddenly the Mountain.
Either the Mountain or Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I would say Bruce Lee.
Let's say he's Thorson's size with Bruce Lee's speed, and I don't know who the best
And
grappler
Steven
is.
Seagal's stunning looks.
Who's the current MMA champion?
I think he becomes one of the Gracie family.
Yeah, let's say he's size with Bruce Lee's speed and one of the Gracie family members' grappling skills. And bitch is already stabbed.
Yeah.
She's stabbed. She's possibly bleeding out. She's possibly just fucking dead, depending on where the knife hits. So that right out does not work. He should have used his baton. See the previous example.
Yeah,
he didn't take baton throwing in officer school? Everyone does that.
He should have used his chemical. Okay, she
out of range.
No, you can actually get a decent arc on certain bits of chemical.
Not the Not the small cans that they carry. Those are for.
You'd be surprised how far a 2-ounce can of chemical can spray.
Well, some people use gel.
Would it be guaranteed to save Pink Girl's life, though?
That's what I was just about to get to. So
no, but if it's spray, everyone just can't see anymore, and now there's someone bleeding out.
Former correction officer, a 2-ounce can of chemical can get a good distance on it. So the problem is that suddenly you have this girl who's about to stab someone. Let's say he manages to get the chemical out and deploy the chemical before she's able to bring the arm forward. Unlikely as fuck to begin with. But let's say, best case scenario, absolute steelman of this, he's able to do it. Suddenly, her world and the pink girl's world goes spicy. And then the pink girl's world, while still being spicy, also gets very sharp and stabby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the spicy
she can't see now. She's stabbing all over. If the cop comes over to try to break them apart, the pink girl could just brush up against his eyes, and now he can't see shit either.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you spray chemical, this is something that people aren't necessarily familiar with, but they find out very quickly if they ever fuck it up. The way that you use chemical is you don't spray and then immediately charge in, because chemical has a way of kind of aspirating off the side in small droplets that kind of float there.
I seem to remember we learned about this a while ago. 1915, 1916-ish.
Yep. So
wind shifting and shit like that. You know,
they kind of mist off to the side, and those can be suspended in air for a little bit. So the moment that you charge in, you've just chemicaled yourself. Mm-hmm. So now you're blind, fighting someone who's blind, and you're
and when you take a shower later, you're gonna scream your fucking lungs out because your balls burn.
Yeah, if you don't know how to properly decon yourself, it's going to be painful. So that is a no-go from that point of view. Okay, let's go to the next thing. That is a step up in the use of force continuum, because I'm stepping each bit up. From the lowest of, hey, don't do that. Already didn't work. We saw that it already didn't work in the full video. We heard that it already didn't work in the full video. To a control tactic, wouldn't work. To the baton, wouldn't work. To chemical, wouldn't work. So let's go taser. So again, you have to be able to holster the taser, draw the taser, deploy the taser, all before an arm's able to come forward. Holster the sidearm. Draw the taser, deploy the taser. Aim the taser, deploy the taser. All before that arm's able to come forward. Also, when someone's tased, anyone happen to remember what happens to the muscles?
They immediately tense up.
Yeah, they immediately tense up.
Assuming it works.
Yeah, assuming that it works, they immediately tense up. So, if someone's about to stab someone, and their muscles immediately tense up,
they're going to keep falling forward.
What's the most likely motion for that hand? It's still going forward as it kind of tenses and jerks up, right?
Yeah.
So,
but it's also going to go down and towards the body.
Yep.
You've just not only had the girl be stabbed by the knife, that is being
slashed with
it by the girl who was attacking her with it, but now you have the girl who just had all of her muscles kind of given that extra little pep in their step from the taser. So that stabbing is a bit more forceful. And then, she's now no longer able to control her body. So after the knife penetrates, it now gets ripped as the girl falls to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sorry, that was just... You visualized that for me. Ugh.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So again, really fucking stupid idea. And that's assuming that everything goes perfectly in the use of that taser. If he isn't able to holster his pistol, draw his taser, aim his taser, deploy his taser, all in the time that it takes for the arm to go forward, she's already been stabbed.
And let's not mistake, heat of the moment, he's not going to be doing any of that perfectly.
No.
And then
ergonomic logistics cancel that out entirely. Anything involving holstering the sidearm.
Well, even that, right? The way the taser barbs come out, they don't fly in a relatively straight line the way a bullet
And
from a
that's what I was
pistol
just about
barrel.
to get to.
Yeah,
No,
No, they
fly,
don't.
they
Normally one goes
separate,
up, one goes down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or sideways. Either way, they
they
don't.
don't have a perfect ballistic arc.
No.
They kind of wobble a little bit in flight. Also, if someone's not wearing very close-fitting clothing, it's rather easy for a barb to hit a shirt and not hit the flesh underneath the shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing happens.
And the other
Yeah,
thing
or if
too,
it hits too close.
and it's not to fat shame her or anything, but she was a big girl, and my understanding is that also is a factor.
It can up
Well,
the
it
amount
is.
of volt that it takes. Yeah.
The way, again, biological difference twixt men and women, and wonderful Tally over on S&M has pointed this out multiple times. Men and women carry the fat on their bodies in different locations.
Yep.
Not just where on their body, like anatomically, but the layering between what is outside muscle versus fat. Women tend to carry their fat outside of their muscles for insulation to protect the baby.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't hit a muscle group, tasers don't work.
Yep. Or at least they
They're
drop
not as
off
effective.
in their efficacy.
It's just
substantially.
it's just a sad fact that girl was fully prepared to kill another person.
Yep. So,
She was fully prepared to kill another person, and I'm sorry, but that is kind of the job of the cop. If they see you about to kill somebody, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
well,
You need
it's
your
not.
life.
As any good
it's the
person,
same up
any good
here.
person
It's-
would put them down.
To be
Let me
quite
correct
frank, it's the
something.
same up here.
Let me
Canada ain't different in that sense.
let me correct something that you just said, though,
Mhm.
Chet, because every use of force,
Mhm.
every single use of force in corrections, in police work, in fucking everything,
Mhm.
comes down to why you're using force.
Mhm.
The idea of shoot to kill, that's a movie trope.
Yes.
That is not reality. Because you don't have a shoot to kill moment. You have, okay, I'm deploying lethal force, or potentially lethal force. I am doing this in a way that is meant to stop the action as quickly as it possibly can. So, now going into the uses of the gun that people keep trying to say, he should have done this, he should have done that. He should have shot into the air so that his bullet would fall and strike someone a couple blocks away.
Yeah, Juan Williams, way to go, dude.
Like these people,
Brilliant.
I feel like these people are the ones who play really shitty games, or they watch really shitty shows on TV where they think what they do is how it works, and it's like, no, those are actors.
Yep.
A lot of the times they're not even the ones shooting. You know,
he should have shot the ground near her. Anyone happen to know what happens when a bullet hits
like
ground?
It
is
ricochets.
it really that hard
It
for
goes
any?
It hits any
There's
hard
old,
surface. It'll bounce off, and
It'll fragment.
even
yeah.
a little 9mm will hurt like hell if it bounces off of something and hits clean flesh.
And also something that not a lot of people know,
Mhm.
which is one thing that drives me crazy in certain movies, where you'll see someone taking cover near a wall and they're pressed directly up against that wall, or they're pressed directly up against a car. That is the worst fucking thing that you can do. Because when the bullet
It travels along.
deflects, it travels along, just as Charming said. It will follow that line. So now you aren't sure who you're going to hit with your bullet. You could shoot the girl who's about to be stabbed in the foot or ankle because you just shot at the ground near them. So, and also, no promise of actually stopping the assailant.
Mhm.
Bad choice. So, they should have shot her in the leg. Okay.
That's not going to stop the arm from moving.
First off, have any of these people, and I already know the answer to this, have any of these people ever been to a firing range and tried to fire a pistol at that range at a target as small as a leg?
That's
Of course
moving.
not.
That's moving. Because you'll find out that's fucking hard as shit. Also,
There's a set of legs there you don't want to hit, too.
Yeah, there's another set of legs that you don't want to hit. Also, on top of those previous things, there's a shit ton of really big blood vessels, arteries and veins and massive capillary beds, all right up in the legs. If you hit that, worst case scenario, you cut the femoral about 90% through. Because there's a response that the body has when an artery is completely severed, which actually buys you a little bit of time sometimes. And that is your muscles spasm and the severed arteries will retract. What that does is it's your body kind of trying to tourniquet itself. It's not 100% effective, but it can buy you an added little bit of time.
Enough time for a doc to get in and actually deal with it.
If there's someone trained in emergency medicine, for them to get in and be able to prolong you long enough that you're able to get in and see a doc. That's something that can happen if it's a complete transection. If it's about a 90%, that muscle spasm and retraction doesn't happen. So that's where you really bleed out quickly, is when it's a 90%. I think it's about 90% is the oh fuck mark. It's something around there. And you just bleed because you don't get that nice retraction and clamping. So you bleed out. That's the worst case scenario. So that could happen. What happens? You shot the girl in the leg, you killed her, because that's what happens. Also, as Donkey pointed out, shooting the leg does not stop the arm. He should have shot the knife out of her hand.
Dead.
Okay, let's go back to the shooting range. Now we're going to do an even smaller target.
That is moving.
That is moving quicker, and not only with the motion that the leg was moving with, but with its own motion added to the motion of the leg. So it's moving a bit more radically than just the leg was.
Well, and even if you did manage to hit said hand, congratulations, you have hit something that does not have enough mass and or solid structure to stop said bullet. And what's on the other side of the bullet? Girl in pink's head.
Exactly. So
congratulations.
More like than not, you're going to miss the hand and you're just going to shoot pink girl. So you've now shot the girl who was about to be stabbed in your attempt to save her from the stabbing.
There is
you fucked up.
There is one instance that I can think of off the top of my head, and this is, I swear to God, this is what all these idiots keep coming back to.
There was one sniper.
Yeah, there was one instance in, I think it was California back in the 90s. Suicidal guy on his front lawn in a lawn chair with a handgun, and he happened to put the handgun down just far enough. It was still in his hand, but he lowered it. It was pointed at the ground, and they had a SWAT sniper in a once-in-a-lifetime shot hit the cylinder of the revolver. It
wasn't a revolver. It was a 9, if I remember. It was a 9 or a 45.
I thought it was a revolver. But anyway, hits the frame. It hits the gun, not his hand. Hits the gun. The gun is destroyed. The frame is fractured completely. He's sitting there going, "What the fuck just happened?"
And he had shrapnel in his hand and shrapnel in his legs.
But he actually told the cops, like, "Dude, that was an amazing shot." The department then told that SWAT sniper, "Don't you ever fucking do that again."
Yep. Yeah, it was a ridiculous shot after a ridiculous risk to take that shot.
There were literally no other options to bring this guy in alive, because if they tried to, he was in the middle of an open field, right? So there's no sneaking up on him. This is before tasers existed.
Yeah.
If you tried to bum rush the guy, your cops are going to get shot, or he's going to shoot himself.
Yep.
Great. We failed there. They've been negotiating with the guy for hours at this point. No success. They're like, fuck it. We're out of options here. Either we take this one shot, or somebody or multiple people are going to die.
Yep.
Let's try it. And it worked. And then they told them, don't, all you SWAT guys, don't ever do this again.
Yeah. Unless you are directly ordered by the highest person
Mm-hmm.
fucking available, do not pull this shit again. It will not end as well.
Yep.
This
I swear to God, all these idiots
thing.
saying, "Oh, just shoot the knife out of her hand," saw that and went, "See, they could do it. They could do it." I'm like, no.
And if you miss, you shot the girl. If you hit the knife, you shot the girl. If you hit the girl's hand with the knife, you probably also shot the girl. So, bad option all the way around, no matter how you cut it. So that one is out. So now you're left with a couple different options of where you could shoot. Legs are out, arms or hand and arms out. So you could aim for the head. Nope, do not aim for the head. Again,
small target, and it's moving.
Go to the range and have you try. It's not that easy. So what you do is you shoot for center mass. Center mass gives you the highest chance of hitting, and also center mass gives you the highest chance of survivability. Because if you hit something like the heart, yeah, person's fucked. If you hit the spleen and kidney, I think, are the next two in order of deadliness. It's either kidney or
spleen and liver. Kidney, you can actually survive because they can just remove the damaged kidney.
Well, the thing that I was trying to remember is kidneys are also ridiculously vascular.
Yeah, well, that's why if you, again, watch the movie Gladiator, the reason Russell Crowe dies in the end, he got stabbed in the kidney.
Yep. So you bleed out rather quickly with that.
Actually, that kidney is a fairly slow one, though, just because it's a lot of capillaries. It's not a major vessel.
Well, if you're stabbed, it's slow. If you're shot...
If you're shot, right, with the...
It's much faster.
Yep, the shot cavity.
Yeah. So I couldn't remember if it was liver then kidney or kidney then liver.
Just don't most
liver first.
Just don't most police use defensive rounds anyway.
Yes, police are issued hollow points. So yeah.
At the very least, depending on the area.
Well, and here's the thing. Just to clarify about the whole hollow point thing, is that the reason why they're issued hollow points is so that way that if they hit someone, it doesn't go straight through them and damage or hurt someone else.
It reduces through and through.
Yeah.
Tell that to the state of New Jersey.
But yeah,
they think they're armor piercing. I'm not making that up.
Wow.
That's because New Jersey's retarded. So
yeah, dude, they have a barricade law.
So when it comes to where you can shoot, you shoot center mass, because as long as you don't hit one of those 3 to 4 organs, there's a chance that you'll be able to save that person.
And complete the actual objective, and the imminent use of lethal force being presented. That is the ultimate objective, no matter what.
And that's what I was saying originally of this idea of shoot to kill. No, that's not how it fucking works. It's shoot to stop. And really, it's every single use of force to stop.
Yeah.
Now,
Doesn't matter the use of force.
I will caveat that in one sense, because a lot of people who have, especially on Eve server, have talked to me about this. I do back off, and I push back on that statement for people who are looking to carry for self-defense. A firearm in every single jurisdiction in the United States is a lethal implement. Use of a firearm in a defensive situation is use of lethal force across the board. If lethal force is not necessary to stop the threat, you go to jail.
Oh yeah, that's part of the use of force continuum.
Right.
Which is what I mentioned earlier.
So when people ask me about, looking to get a firearm for self-defense, the first thing I tell them is, if you are not prepared to end a human life, you do not need a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, just a quick caveat. The officer made a really huge decision, and even drawing his weapon. I don't know what the law is wherever this happened, but in the state of Florida, even drawing your gun and pointing it at someone is deadly force. So,
brandishing
you
laws,
got to
yes,
make
absolutely.
Yeah, it's the threat.
Yeah.
Force.
Yep, it is. In some jurisdictions, just just having your hand on it or drawing from the holster will get you in trouble for brandishing. Pointing it at somebody, it becomes terroristic threats. And again, we're talking civilians here, not police. Police have separate rules. But for a civilian, it can range from simple brandishing to terroristic threats. By the way, one is a felony, one is a misdemeanor.
Yeah,
Take
well,
a
I
guess
mean, the
which one's
police,
which.
even in the police, it's considered deadly force as soon as you draw your gun.
Okay, and I
Just to
found
clarify for anyone who didn't.
I found the image that I wanted to use because I keep mentioning the use of force continuum, and I know what it is. A couple other people probably know what it is. I'm willing to bet the vast majority of people have never heard of the use of force continuum or have never seen the use of force continuum. Am I correct in this assumption, at least with the people on the panel?
Yeah.
Yes.
The basic idea of non-lethal, less than lethal, and lethal.
The use of force continuum. Let me get this sized up right for this, and it'll just be easier if I go to just that on screen. Everyone see the image that I put up?
Yes, I do.
Can you read what it says, or is
Deadly force, communication.
So in every single instance, so the center of the circle is to represent the totality of the circumstance or totality of the condition, totality of the environment. There's a couple different ways of phrasing it. Totality of the situation is the way that I was taught.
Yeah, we were taught circumstances down here.
Yep, totality of circumstances is another big one. So that center represents everything that spirals out from it. So you can kind of ignore that, but the next circle around is assess, plan, act. So assess is something that happens throughout. Plan is also something that happens throughout. Act happens in that final third. Really, it's more of a final half. So the first bit, first use of force, first thing that you do in order to stop an action is just be there. As a officer or as a
command
person,
presence.
As a command presence, just being there has a tendency of stopping a lot of shit. As long as the person is cooperative. So you see the white slab of, or white section of the inner circle says cooperative. Officer presence with cooperative gets through a lot of that shit. Officer presence can also stop a lot of the other things, but it always is sufficient for cooperative. And going much beyond that isn't. The one thing that you can use with a cooperative is still communication/commands. So, hey, I see that you're doing this. Can you please stop that? And if they go, absolutely. And they stop, that's done. Nothing else. Done and dusted.
Yep. But instead, if they don't agree with you and they go, fuck you.
If they start going through passive resistance. So passive resistance is they're continuing to do it. They aren't really even acknowledging you, or they might say, fuck off. That's now considered passive resistance. You're still allowed to issue commands and communicate with the person. You're allowed to do look, man, the reason why I told you not to do that is you see that sign over there? This is a no smoking area. Just take it out, grind it out. You can save it for later. You can walk over there. That's a smoking area. You aren't allowed to smoke right here. And if they go, oh, sorry, officer, it goes back to officer presence. You're done. If that doesn't work and they're still in passive resistance, then you can do soft interventions. So soft interventions would be...
Slip the cigarette out of the hand.
Nope, that's not a soft intervention. Soft intervention would be like tapping the dude on the shoulder and going, come on, man, really just walk over there. You aren't doing anything physical. You aren't striking. You aren't doing anything like that. You're just kind of guiding them very lightly. You aren't even using a control tactic yet. This is just very soft. Come on, man, really? That handles it. You're done. Now, in that area where it's between passive and active, that's when you can start using your control tactics. Every area that I'm aware of has a certain set of control tactics that they're allowed. And it depends on your area, which ones are allowed, which ones you're trained in, and you can only use the control tactics that you're taught in that venue, in that application, in that area. You can't use any other control tactics that you might know. So, for instance, when I was going through the Correction Academy, we learned 13 or 15 different pressure points. If someone knew a 16th pressure point, you weren't allowed to use that. And if you ever do use that, you will be in a massive amount of shit for using it. Because that is not one of the trained and okayed use of force. So, once you're going away from passive and it's becoming just straight up active resistant, that's when you're allowed to start doing less than lethal. Or less lethal is the better way of phrasing it, but some people still use the less than lethal moniker. So, hold on one moment.
That's a sneeze.
Yep.
Less lethal would be chemical. Or a taser can be considered less lethal.
Baton blocks. Not so much striking, but using it to...
Using it as a leverage assistance.
Or control. Yeah.
yes, as a control device rather than an impact device.
Yep. That type of shit is all considered less lethal. Also, if you're in a riot squad, then...
Your shield.
The shield, also, depending on the area, sometimes this is one that kind of dances on the line of less lethal and impact weapons, are sabotons, also known as rubber bullets.
Eesh.
Pepper ball
baton
guns
rounds.
too.
Yeah, baton rounds.
And beanbag rounds.
I would absolutely classify beanbags, particularly the current generation, as not just less than lethal, but less lethal. It is it's getting sucker punched by Mike Tyson, but they are specifically designed to spread the impact out over such a wide area that it really should not disrupt anything.
Yep, but it's kind of in
take
that...
your breath away. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, you're going down.
Yeah, it's one of those things that depends on the area that you're in, because like I said, sometimes it's counted impact, sometimes it's counted less lethal. It depends. So you take it up, and they're now absolutely actively resisting, and they're borderline assault. This is when you're allowed to start using hard strikes. Hard strikes means you're not allowed to punch the person.
Get your dukes up, boys.
You're allowed to kick. You're allowed to do nerve strikes. And again, when it comes to nerve strikes, at this point of the wheel, you're taught very specific nerve strikes. You can only use those very specific nerve strikes. Do not use any that you aren't taught. You can also start using impact weapons, so this is when your baton can come out.
Uh-huh.
This is when other blunt force instruments. If you're carrying a mag light, you can start using a mag light at this point. So let's skip ahead to the final part, which is the grievous bodily harm, also sometimes called great bodily injury.
Yep.
Or death. So this is the person's about to stab someone. This is the person is brandishing a firearm and looks like they're about to shoot someone.
Key thing being about to shoot someone.
Yep. And that's also in the term brandishing, because holding a gun is different than brandishing a gun.
Depending on your local laws.
Depending on local laws, but it is one that's fairly consistent, that if you're holding a gun in low ready, that isn't considered brandishing. Now, there's some gray areas where it could be holding in some areas, could be brandishing in others. But if it's low ready, it's typically not considered brandishing. It's just holding. If you're pointing it at someone, that is absolutely brandishing. Effectively across the board. And that would be the grievous bodily harm or death. Also, if someone has taken someone to the ground and they're now stomping on that person's head, grievous bodily harm or death.
Yeah. Also, in some states, there is a duty to act clause. So even if, okay, so let's say that officer decided not to shoot her and he decided to like walk away or say, hey, stop, he would have lost his job and been sued by the state and the other family as well.
And potentially criminal charges. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So once you reach the grievous bodily harm or death,
Breach of duty,
you are in the deadly force range, which means everything can be used. So when you're talking impact weapons, there's very strict rules about where you can strike someone. When you're talking hard strikes, there's hard strikes that you're taught as whatever department you're working with, whatever correctional department, law enforcement department, whatever the fuck you're learning use of force through, there's specific ones that you're taught. And once you hit the deadly force, no holds barred, no strikes completely off the table, no locations of impact off the table. It is
neutralize the threat. That's correct.
Yep. And whatever means you need to end the threat, and then the moment that it falls back outside the grievous bodily harm or death category, you immediately have to step it down. So someone could go from just about to stab someone, and let's say you shoot them in the shoulder. You're aiming center of mass, it hits them in that shoulder, that arm goes limp, and they drop the knife, and then they put up their other hand. You're immediately into control, at most. So you start issuing your commands, you start your control tactics, you start trying to cuff them.
This actually, there was a case a few years ago, a couple morons decided to rob a convenience store. The owner was armed. The robbers were armed, and the owner returned fire, struck one of the robbers, I think it was a 16, 18-year-old kid, whatever, doesn't matter at that point, he's got a gun in his hand. He hits the kid goes down hard. The other kid takes off running. The owner, at that point, he's in the clear. Kid had a gun. It's on camera. He returned fire. Everything is copacetic. Where he fucked up.
The kid was running.
He reloaded, came back, and shot the kid that was already shot on the ground.
Oh.
At that, nope. He's like, nope, you just fucked up.
Yep. Like I said, the moment that it steps down, so it goes from grievous to they're now cooperative, you're back in cooperative mode.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's called the thin blue line.
Yep. If you go from assaultive to suddenly now they're just passive resistance, all your hard strikes, all your impact weapons cease immediately.
And you have to render aid.
Soft control, communication, and control tactics.
That's right. Well, the first thing is put them in handcuffs and then render aid.
Yep, which is control tactics. Cuffs are counted as control tactics.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying anything against that. I was just clarifying what I said.
And depending on how retarded the area that you work is, you might have something really stupid, like when you're writing up a report, you aren't allowed to say that you applied cuffs or that you cuffed the offender, and you have to say that mechanical wrist restraints were applied to the offender by officer so-and-so and so-and-so. Because when you use the word cuffed, it sounds... No, it sounds too harsh, too violent. So you need
Oh, you're
to.
talking like big lefty cities. Got you.
Well, so the cuff is not just a noun in terms of like handcuffs. Cuff
can
is
also
also
mean
a verb.
It can mean that you struck someone.
Yep.
But you can't even say that you applied handcuffs. Because handcuff sounds too severe.
But also, if all you had was zip ties, you know.
And even then, you aren't allowed to say that you applied soft cuffs, which is what a lot of people refer to the zip ties as. They're soft cuffs. Again, you have to phrase it as applied mechanical wrist restraint. And Eve, we're just finishing up on the use of force continuum because it came up towards the end of the stream, and this is something that I know about the use of force continuum. And a lot of people get this shit wrong. So I want to get people to know what the fuck it's about.
Yeah.
And with that, it is
Yeah.
substantially after the standard cutoff. So who wants to give parting words, or do people just want to end?
You know what I'll say. Have fun, because what's one living you ain't having fun.
Yeah.
Oh wait, could you take the picture off? I don't know. I'm sorry. I think that was Forky.
Oh yeah, I can. It was Useless, or as he's currently going by, Spoonerisms, or he goes by a bunch of different names.
Yeah. Just call me Useless if you want. I don't mind.
Almost like he's running from the cops, going back to the use of force continuum.
Oh God.
But yeah, that's his ending words. Anyone else want to toss out their ending words, or you guys content?
I'm pretty good.
I'm good. I got to get up in about 4 hours.
So I'll just toss out one quick thing, which is going to be my standard. If you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it.
Oh,
Don't
wait.
let it devour you.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got one, Sanguine.
Okay?
All right. He that rebels against a reason is a real rebel, but he that in defense of reason rebels against tyranny has a better title to defender of faith than George III. And that's by Thomas Paine.
Nice. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Have a good night, guys. Don't feed the monkeys.
Eve has closing thoughts,
Have
apparently. Come on, Eve. We're waiting for you. It'll take you a little bit to catch up. So this is just going to be me talking about how we're now waiting for you because you have closing thoughts.
Oh, great.
Wait, come on, Eve.
Get in here.
Typing it out.
You're pulling a Peter now.
Pulling
Not
the
pulling
Peter.
the Peter in that manner, but
Wow.
should I say that you're pulling a Silac?
She says it. I like restraints, that's all.
Okay, her parting words are, I like restraints. That is. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo.
Have fun.
Night.
Don't feed the monkeys.
Nope.
Oh no.
He actually left the stream.
Oh no.
Um,
Guys.
And
All
of
right.
course, right as I do that, my internet decides to have a quick hiccup. So
Yeah.
now, have a good night, all.